Yeah, and Netanyahu said he's been trying to get this done for 40 years, and Trump finally did it. This is all public. And Marco Rubio said that Iran did not pose a threat on America, that they attacked because they were threatening Israel. It's clear who struck first, and people still buy the propaganda. The major lie that's being spread is that, okay, well, we can't allow Iran to have nuclear weapons. We can't allow Iran to have nukes. But Israel has nuclear weapons. And when JFK tried to investigate their nuclear program, you saw everybody knows what happened to JFK. As well, Israel has the Samson option, which is the ability, if I'm not mistaken, to nuke the world if too much anti-Semitism rises. So you have predicted and you've spoken about the ground troop potential invasion. I don't know when you think that is. Maybe you can answer that. But what is the potential of a nuke dropping?
Right. So I would actually discount a nuke dropping, okay? So and this is something that I think occupies a lot of people, but we'll explain why I don't think this will ever happen, okay? Okay. The first reason is the Samson option. The Samson option, as you point out, is that Israel will literally nuke the entire world if its existence is threatened. Okay, it's not a conspiracy. It's just their policy. Okay, so that's a strategic nuclear arsenal you're using for strategic purposes. If you want to use a nuke in a war, that's something called a tactical nuclear strike, right? Now, it's actually hard to change military doctrine in the middle of a war. It's almost like asking a football team to go play hockey, right? Because remember, a military is a bureaucracy. There's everyone's trained to think a certain way, and so a tactical nuclear weapon would go against every military doctrine in the world. So I don't think that it's so if people talk about it, but I think it's beyond the capacity of both the Israelis and the Americans to actually use a tactical nuclear weapon in Iran. Okay, that's point number one. Point number two is that you would use a tactical nuclear weapon if you want to win this war at all costs. But that's assuming these guys want to win this war. But if you look at the eschatology, right? If you look at the entire premise of the Greater Israel Project, they want to actually lose this war. Why? Because the point of America going into Iran with a ground invasion is for Americans to lose so badly that they're forced out of the Middle East. America is forced to go back into the Western Hemisphere. They no longer involve themselves in the Middle East. And so when America goes, CENTCOM, Central Command, folds naturally into Israel, thus creating the Greater Israel Project, right? All these American bases, all the American technology, the satellites, the airplanes, the bombs, all go into Israel, right? So it benefits actually Israel to drag this war out as long as possible, to force a ground invasion that destroys American morale, and then they pick up the pieces, right? The longer this war goes on, the more destruction there is, the more Israel benefits.
Mm-hmm.
So Israel is now getting bombarded, especially Tel Aviv, by Iranian missiles. But you may not have known this, but there are actually Israelis in Tel Aviv burning down their own homes for the insurance money, right? So the Israelis have absolutely no problem with destroying their own country if it means more profit in the future. Okay, they don't. So that's their calculus. Okay, that's point number two. Like they don't want to win this war; they want to lose this war.
Mm-hmm.
Point number three is this: if Iran were to collapse, if the Israelis and Americans succeed in occupying Iran, Russia would be in a lot of trouble. And we talked about this last time, right? Where Russia would be insistent on making sure that Iran is coherent. And so there's reporting from the Washington Post that right now the Russians are providing targeting intelligence to the Iranians, and that's why these missile strikes are so accurate. Also, Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia, has said that the Russians are interested in the Iranians winning this war. And I'm sure through back channels, the Russians have informed the Americans and Israelis, don't go too far. Do not use nukes, okay? And at some point, if there is a ground invasion, I would not be surprised if Putin came out in public and said that Iran is now under the Russian nuclear umbrella, which means that if we detect any tactical nuclear strike in Iranian territory, that would be considered an attack on Russian territory as well, and Russia will respond accordingly, okay? Mm-hmm. So for these three reasons, I think the possibility of a nuclear weapon being used is almost zero.